a lot of people don't know he has a brother, and a lot of people don't know that my brother's Corey Graves. And
Right.
I don't know, maybe I'm an idiot that I don't capitalize on that. But the other side of it is like, nobody sees us as brothers.
Sam Adonis, ladies and gentlemen, how are you?
I am wonderful, my friend. Thank you for having me this evening, afternoon, or morning, whenever someone's listening to this. But I'm looking forward to getting into it with you.
That's a pleasure having you on. You're in like this man cave of all kinds of wrestling. Wow, there is so much memorabilia behind you.
Well, it is the man cave. I have so much wrestling crap, it could probably fill 3 houses. But me and my girlfriend live together, and we delegated it to one room, which is nice. So I have a lot of unique and rare toys, and that's pretty much my pride and joy.
What are you have a few championships behind you. Which ones do we have there?
This is the title that my dad used to use in a promotion here in Pittsburgh. This one is a championship I have out of Nevada right now. And the top one is one out of Florida. And then this one's just an NWA replica. So I've always been a belt mark, if you will. So it's nice to have things on display to show off to my friends when I'm allowed to have them over.
So 2020 was obviously a strange year for everybody. Everybody had to pivot here. And I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but you pivoted into a different job, at least briefly, while the world is, figuring itself out. You've been working as the person who brings us our Amazon presents and gifts and all of our orders.
I deliver smiles daily on behalf of Amazon, if you will. It's what needed to be done. This whole situation has been completely unfortunate for everybody. And before this, I was lucky enough to make my living as a wrestler for the better part of the last 8 years. And a lot of that has been overseas.
Amazing, by the way.
As a true independent, it's quite difficult to pull off. I just had the stars align in the right points in time. But this all happened, and I just realized I have bills to pay. I was too uncertain in the beginning. I just moved in with my girlfriend at the time. We had things lining up. I got a car payment, just like anybody does. Yeah. And I'm not the kind of person to wait around. I couldn't dig my hole any deeper. So I had to just get a different job. And the nice thing is I'm glad I did at the time, because now, this pandemic financially hasn't really affected me at all, but it's definitely put everything into a completely different perspective and made me appreciate what I had. And it makes me want, to return to normal as soon as possible.
Well, when the pandemic started, a lot of jobs weren't even on the table. So for you to go out and not only go, all right, I need to get a quote unquote real job, but also like to find one that was possible at that time.
Well, I have a friend of mine that worked at Amazon at the time, my buddy Dave, and he had just started about 2 weeks earlier. And he says, hey, if you ever need work, let me know. I can get you in here. And it just fell into the right time frame. And I ended up getting right in there. I had to fill out my application one day. The next day was a drug test. I think 2 days after that, I was in training, and the rest is history. Now I'm like an old pro at it. That's the worst part, Now it's so normal. I feel like I'm kind of good at it.
Well, and for anybody who's listening to this right now going, oh man, I can't find a job anywhere. These jobs do exist.
Well, Amazon's out there, they're always hiring, especially where I'm at. There's a couple other wrestlers that are working for them now just because of seeing my story. The thing that I didn't want to do in the beginning, whenever it all happened and the work stopped, so many of my friends and other wrestlers were posting online about, hey, please buy my merch. I don't have work. Please buy my merch. And, part of me thinks like, well, you're not the only one that got hit hard. The same people that need to buy the merch might not have their job, so it was kind of a catch-22. Not everybody was able to, save that kind of money or make that kind of money just off merchandise. So I actually had a box of new t-shirts that I haven't even sold because I didn't want to ask anybody for money when it's a hard time for all of us.
The shirt you're wearing right now, is that one of your new shirts?
That's one of the new shirts. Yeah.
Good shirt.
It's a Godzilla style shirt from it was designed by a buddy of mine for a Japan tour, and that never happened. So I haven't been back to Japan in about 13 months now. So I was never able to get these shirts on the shelves over there.
I think that everybody thinks that, snap your fingers and this pandemic's going to be over and life's going to be back to normal, but it's obviously not going to happen that way. You're going to have a strange transition out of this back into wrestling, if you will.
Well, I think it's like you said, it's not going to just be easy. It's not going to be overnight. I really don't see it being possible as an independent to pick back up as full time. The amount of shows all over the nation are drastically down. There's just not the volume of work like there were before this pandemic. The independents were as hot as they've ever been, and every weekend, across 50 states and countless cities, there was independent wrestling. Now, on a busy Friday or Saturday, there might be 10 shows across the entire nation, depending on the state guidelines and whatnot. So I've been lucky enough to be able to pick up some work through this. Being able to stay a little bit busier and not fade into obscurity, if you will. But everything's changed so much as far as taking care of the cleanliness, always having your hand sanitizer with you, wearing the face mask, and just being overall cautious. It's changed so much that I don't think it's just going to come back and be normal again. I think I'm probably going to be at Amazon for a while, unless some other opportunity comes up. But, I look at it as most of us wrestlers are, well-bodied human beings. And this is a task, might as well put ourselves to work and make a few bucks instead of sitting at home watching wrestling.
That other opportunity that comes up might be, full-time wrestling job.
Well, I think like as long as my new gimmick can be the Amazon guy, that'd be perfect. I can come to the ring delivering foreign objects in an Amazon box. I mean, if there's a Mountie and there's a big boss man, why not the Amazon driver?
Trying to think of what your finisher could be called.
I have no idea. The Prime Plex.
Oh my gosh, there it is. Book this man. Book him.
Brilliant, baby. Brilliant. That's it. I need to get in contact with Amazon and tell them my story. I could end up being on a commercial or something,
That's a great point. I mean, the fact that you're telling this story to everyone, I think there's a lot of people that might be in your situation and they wouldn't be telling the story. They'd be going, "Oh, yeah, it's been tough this year. I'm getting by."
Well, fake it till you make it only goes so far. You know what I mean? You can't really pull this off right now because, I can't even lie to you and say I'm wrestling. Where's the pictures from Friday? Well, how did that match go? There's nothing there. You can't really, you can't ignore it. It's staring everybody in the face. And like I said, you got to make lemons out of lemonade. I'm lucky enough to have a job right now because like you said, there's plenty of people out there that, aren't as lucky.
Well, that's what you're doing. You're making lemonade right now and you're drinking it every single day.
Exactly. My body is taking a beating though, man. These 4 a.m. mornings, I'm tired. It definitely also gave me a new sense of respect for your essential workers, if you will. People that have been doing this even before, when there was still opportunity. Some people, do this on a daily basis and it makes me really appreciate, just the mailman and the delivery drivers. Something little. Anytime we go to some of these houses and they'll leave a bottle of water out front and say thank you, delivery drivers, and that kind of stuff makes a difference because a lot of people have been collecting unemployment or just working from home, and these people still get up every day 4:30, 5 o'clock and deliver in the traffic and the freezing cold, and it's definitely humbling, if you will. And I think I'd like to think that 5 or 10 years from now, when I'm looking back at this period of my life, I would like to see it as a valuable life lesson and experience.
Did you get any tips over the holidays?
Yeah, I got a couple gift cards.
That's cool. I always love hearing that.
Yeah. I don't think it's as easy to do as a mailman because normally you have the same consistent mailman. But, there's so many people that know, exactly what time we're there every day. And, a couple of people tracked me down, just some gift cards, nothing outrageous, no story that's going to make any newspapers. But, I'm appreciative of that. It's really cool. Just even if it's to buy a couple coffees or, a Subway sandwich on the way home, that's $15 I didn't have, so it was cool.
If we take it back, you kind of mentioned it, but you grew up in a wrestling family. Your father was, somewhat of a historian, but also a promoter as well.
As far back as I remember, wrestling was just kind of like, part of the family. My dad used to sponsor these independent wrestling shows at his fire hall. He was a volunteer fire chief and he would buy the fundraisers and act as the promoter for that. So it got to the point where he'd put on these little shows and we loved it. My mom would sell tickets. My brother would be in the back helping the wrestlers. I'd just be running around. But, that kind of snowballed into my dad running his own events. And it ultimately led to my brother, Corey Graves, to be a wrestler. And as far back as I remember, these toys behind me were in my hands. I was playing with them. It's all I've ever known, all I've ever loved. And, my mom probably knows more about wrestling than most independent wrestlers do, just because of it, the way it is in our household.
So this was one of those situations where it wasn't a question of if you were going to be a wrestler, it was a question of when you were going to become a wrestler.
Oh, exactly. And I've, told this story a few times to a few people, but I was kind of fat in high school. I wasn't very athletic. I really had nothing to me, but I was very easygoing because of that. And I'm kind of big on the self-motivation and tips and what like that. It's, I've never doubted myself for a second, even when I was heavy, even when I didn't have the girlfriends, even when I wasn't athletic, because it's okay. Don't worry. I'll be a wrestler. Yeah. When I'm 30, I'll be a wrestler. Don't worry about it. And that mentality has almost kind of guided me in the right direction because, the pictures of me at 18 are so drastically different from myself now. And I'm definitely proud of that.
And you did it. So you're doing it now. When did this begin for you?
I had my first match. It'll be 13 years, February 2nd. It was 2008. I had my first match, and training. I actually, I was pretty athletic in the training. Not, you wouldn't really, I always say the analogy that if your parents own a bakery, you might be able to bake a good cake. And it was, when I was at wrestling school, I was learning things just kind of at an unnatural pace for some fat kid my size. And it all just kind of came to me quite well. I had about a year as a wrestler that just went nowhere. I was just the most boring indie, pleather pants and kick pads wrestler you can be. And once I turned heel, that's when I really decided to embrace this and put the work in. Once I dyed my hair blonde, and I realized that I can get people to hate me quite easily and, make people smile when I get my butt kicked. That's when I turned the dial up and started going to the gym, started eating better. And probably 2 years after that, I was signed to WWE.
That's incredible.
Part of me, hindsight being 2020, wishes I would have started when I was 15 getting in shape because I'd be Batista these days. But
how big are we talking when you say you were fat?
I was graduated high school at 294 pounds.
That's a big boy.
Yeah. And I wasn't quite 6'4" at that point. I was about 6'1", 290.
Okay. Well, you're a tall guy, which I think is something that not everybody realizes until they meet you. So close to 300 pounds at 6'4", it's big, but it's not like, it's not huge.
Right. Now it was big enough that it was definitely hard work, and I just growing up and having those eating habits and whatnot, it's definitely going to be a difficult transition, but I wouldn't trade it for the world because, the nice thing is I've been able to experience a lot of my dreams, and I'm really big on, like I said, being able to believe in yourself and get this stuff done because, a lot of my friends, a lot of bigger names in wrestling, if you will, I've known them since I was a child. They would have never guessed 10 years ago or 12 years ago that I'd turn out into the person I am today. And that's just something I hang my hat on.
So you're 2 years into your wrestling career. WWE comes around, ends up signing you. You must think, oh my God, I'm doing something right. Yeah.
I thought I did it. I thought I made it. I thought this was the answer to all my prayers and that I'm going to be the next Hulk Hogan. Needless to say, that did not happen. I probably had one of the most embarrassing FCW careers you could imagine. I just was not ready to be there mentally. Being 20 years old, living at your parents', making money from the bar on the weekend, going to a good sized contract, under contract with WWE, living in Tampa, Florida by myself is a pretty huge transition. So when I was down there, it just, partying and hanging out and meeting girls kind of, took precedent to what I was there to do. And I might have had 4 matches the entire time I was there. I had a knee injury. I learned a lot. Don't get me wrong. I was there in the class. I was around the right people, but at that age and that immaturity level, I didn't know how to harness what I had. So
right. And this wasn't set up with the same structure that they have now. If you had gotten signed now to developmental, you'd be thrown right into the NXT system. You'd be in the performance center. It might be a little bit more structured than what you had.
Well, yeah, there was a lot of scenarios that didn't really make sense, but who am I to question these things? I'm lucky to be there. And I've been told, you're lucky to be here because I was 21 with, next to some of the biggest superstars on the planet. What did I have to offer? But there was a lot of stuff, we would have to travel all over and put out the posters and just, I was really good at selling merchandise. That was kind of my role when I was there. every wrestling show would come around. Orlando on Wednesday, Friday night will be Largo, Saturday will be Jacksonville, or wherever we go. They'd say, Sam, you're on merch Friday. I was like, whoa, can I have a match? It's been like 6 months since I've had a match. No, we really need you for merch on Friday. It's a big show. And like, part of these things, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how to write my situation, but I just sat back and did what I was told. I eventually got hurt, and I eventually got released. But hindsight being 2020, the invaluable experience I picked up there has led to so many huge opportunities in my life that, hindsight being 2020, WWE is one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Who else was at FCW when you were there?
I was there with Bray Wyatt. Roman Reigns was there. Seth Rollins was there. I want to say CM Punk was still the champion while I was there. He came to FCW a few times. There were so many of them. I think there's more people that are gone now that were than are actually still there from my class. And I think that's funny about just a lot of times things come down to when you peak. Yes, I was 21 and I came through the system and got spicked back out. But there's a lot of people that were in that system for a while and made it to TV. And they might have only had a 2-3 year career, and then they were back on their way out.
Right.
It almost feels like maybe it was in the cards for me to kind of get it out of my system early so I can see the goal, so I can, determine myself to get back to that and understand what I want, have to do to get there. Because, it's funny now, so many former WWE wrestlers that were my friends, when we were in FCW, will contact me for wrestling work. Hey man, what's going on in Mexico? Who's working in Europe? We should work together. And which means, hey, get me on a show.
Yeah.
So it's just funny because, I almost got a head start on a lot of the guys that, have been released since. And like I said, the just having that name on your resume, is invaluable. Just being able to tell someone you had a WWE contract in pro wrestling, that's you might as well have a degree from Harvard.
Yeah. Well, you get signed at 21. Your brother had been wrestling many more years before that. What does he think when his little brother gets signed before him?
I think it just broke his heart. I think he was angry. I think he was frustrated because wrestling does that to all of us. Sometimes we have our ups and we have our downs. When I got signed, I kind of went behind his back. I told him I wanted to do some extra work, and he said, no, you're not ready. And he knew I wasn't ready, but I went for it anyway. I got this DVD, made this fancy cover, put out these 8x10s, nice typed resume, and physically sent a package to Titan Towers. And about two weeks later, I got a phone call booking me for some dates, did those dates. And then they flew me to Florida for a tryout where I did well, and I got a job. And I definitely think my brother probably would have said, yeah, okay, Sam, go for it. You're just going to look like an idiot. You're not going to get anything. And, he was right in the long term, but short term, it got me an opportunity, and, it blossomed into a lot of different things.
Well, he ended up getting signed eventually. I mean, everyone knows him now as a commentator, but I mean, he wrestled for many, many years.
He got hired 2 days before I got released. I was actually coming off an injury and I was pretty down. I knew the situation. I knew things weren't going my way, and I knew I needed something to happen or I was going to get released. On a Wednesday, I got a phone call. Said, guess what? What's up? I'm coming down to Florida. I says, what, you coming to visit? I got the job. And oh my gosh, yes. And it was like that little spark underneath me that I needed, because now things are going to be better. Now my brother's going to help and, lift my spirits up and be with me. And we're not going to be alone doing this. And literally 2 days later, I had a couple of the wrestlers in the car. We were supposed to go to Destin, Florida, I think. And I got about 45 minutes out I-4 in Orlando. And I got the phone call from Johnny Ace saying, hey, you don't need to come to the show today.
Oh my gosh. And then your brother's stayed, like Corey Graves has stayed signed ever since then?
Yeah. He's had the job the entire time. That's one thing. And it's funny because a lot of people don't know he has a brother, and a lot of people don't know that my brother's Corey Graves. And I don't know, maybe I'm an idiot that I don't capitalize on that. But the other side of it is like, nobody sees us as brothers. And I think that's kind of cool because, as soon as people, I swear, if I got a WWE contract tomorrow, I would just be Corey Graves' brother, no matter how good I am and how many things I do. Oh, he only got a job because of his brother. Yeah. Whereas the path that I'm on now, what I've already been able to carve out for myself, there's not such a strong relation there. You can't see the relationship, So if I got signed, now there's going to be a lot of people that say, "Who's this Sam Adonis guy?" I like him because I haven't really milked off my brother at all. And
I think close with your brother?
Yes and no. WWE is a very, very busy place. So I don't really get to see him as much as I'd like. But we almost always have like a running line of text messages, a couple texts a day, just random stuff, just brotherly stuff. But, as far as wrestling goes, I don't really talk about wrestling with him. We're just in, completely different universes, if that makes sense. I think if he wanted to help me, he probably would have done it by now. So I really don't bother him with my wrestling problems. I know how to handle my situation. And, my brother knows the WWE system more than most of the guys there. But my brother has also never wrestled in Mexico and never done a lot of the things I've been able to do. So it's kind of like apples and oranges as far as the wrestling relationship goes. But we were at his house for Christmas Eve. He's my brother and I'll always love him. But we're not exactly joined at the hip.
Maybe that's a favor you call in when you think you're ready. 2 years, 5 years, whatever from now.
Well, I'd like to think that hopefully I can do it before it ever has to happen. But, who knows? This business is unpredictable. We just got to get back to wrestling in the first place. But yeah. I'm so ready. Like I said, this February will be 13 years as a wrestler for me. And, I've been able to really hone my craft and learn from everybody all over the world. I taught myself Spanish in Mexico because of, communicating with the wrestlers and just the amount of time I spent in Japan, learning their style and how to learn cultures and people. I think I have a lot to offer, and whether it's WWE or some other company, I think I'd like to think that pro wrestling has made me a little bit of an interesting human being just because of the stops along the way.
Yeah, you're definitely an interesting human being. I mean, look at all the different places you've lived. So after FCW, after living in Tampa, you went and moved to England.
Yeah, that was actually really cool. And at this time, right when I was in FCW, I was rather tight with William Regal. He was one of my favorite people while I was down there. And we were able to stay in communication. And I actually ran into him at Disneyland, which was random.
Wow.
I got fired on the Friday. And then on the Sunday, TNA was having a pay-per-view in Orlando. And I went to the tapings because I'm like, maybe if I watch some wrestling, see some of the boys, get my head off things. I was kind of just trying to come to terms with things. And I get there and there's this system of free tickets and wait in line and all this. And I'm like, I just got fired from WWE. I'm not waiting in line with a bunch of TNA fans. No disrespect to the Impact fans, but it was just it was a difficult time in my mental state right then.
Well, you were going to have to make the shift from going from performer a few days earlier to being a fan now.
Right. Yeah. And I just wasn't in the mood, because a lot of those fans did recognize the FCW guys. Sure. I didn't want anyone saying, "Hey, Sam, why are you here tonight and not in Destin with these guys?" I just got released. So as I'm leaving, I said, I'm going home. And I walked by and Regal was there with his family. Apparently he had free tickets and he had no idea it was a TNA show that day. So he was ducking and dodging all the fans as well. And he actually put me in contact with Brian Dixon, who's one of the longest running promoters in the world. He's been doing 50 years as of this year, if you can count this year. But he put me in touch with him, and that got me to live in Liverpool, where I stayed for the better part of 4 years. And that's where I really learned how to wrestle, because the amount of shows, wrestling 100 or 150 matches a year, you're going to learn your craft and pick it up. And that's really where I kind of started making waves and developing into the performer I am, which eventually led me to the opportunities in Mexico and the opportunities in Japan.
So when you go to England, you're working for one promoter who's booking you on all of these shows?
Yeah, that's
great.
The nice thing is, I don't think I've ever worked outside the United States without a visa. Every time I've ever traveled to these places, I've had full-time gigs, and it's all paid for and it's taken care of. But I stayed in his house. He had an extra guest house, almost, if you will. It's something that wrestlers know all about. It's called the Digs in Birkenhead, England. I mean, tons of wrestlers. Daniel Bryan has stayed there. El Generico has stayed there. So many people have stayed at this notorious wrestling house. And you literally just, lived your life there. You get a date sheet once a month. And he said, you know what time the bus leaves. So he comes and picks us up. I say bus, but it's really just a minivan. So we all meet in the minivan and, drive 5 or 6 hours, wrestle, sleep. Next day, drive 5 or 6 hours, wrestle, sleep. And it was actually, pretty close to the old school territory style of wrestling, which was, it was awesome for me. Just the experience and hearing stories and learning the actual job. And it was definitely a good time in my life.
What do you think was the first real takeaway from the British style of wrestling? Because you were wrestling in America up till that point. What was the real takeaway for you?
And this is something that has stayed with me all over my career. And the British style of wrestling is done best by the British. A lot of it, and it's not just the British, it's the lucha style and Japanese puresu style. The thing that I've come to learn is that most of my work where I'm at, and you got to take yourself out of the realm of wrestling fans, just put yourself in the realm of John Q. Public. People have one idea of what it is that they're seeing, and a lot of them don't want to know more than that.
Yeah.
Some of these wrestling fans might just be there with their kid because they like it. They see American wrestler. They want American wrestling. They make the correlation that I'm something like you'd see on a WWE or an Impact. So it's a little bit more dramatic. It's a little bit more, strike oriented. There's a million examples I can give you. But what I learned in England was to stay American. And that little detail was so crucial to the other opportunities I've had. It's the same thing in Mexico. They want the American wrestler against the Mexican wrestlers. They want the American guy against the Japanese wrestler. So you shouldn't really, change your style that much. Years ago, wrestling was American. People thought, around the world, they look at wrestling as, the American sport. Whereas now the new style, it's kind of evolved into a hybrid of Japanese and Mexican wrestling, with some strikes. And I think staying traditional is what I learned there. And it definitely helped my cause.
When you first moved to England, how long did you think you were going to be there for?
I don't remember.
I mean, you ended up being there for 4 years, which is a long time. That's a college degree.
I wasn't there 4 years continuously. I did come home at that point, but my first time there was, I want to say 4 months. And in the third month, I actually tore my meniscus and needed a surgery, but the NHS system, it was a whole long wait list and whatnot. So I had to tape my knee up and wrestle for another month on that before I came home. I got my knee scoped, and then I went back, and I was back by February the next year. So I went for 4 months, came home for 3 months, and then was back for a year and a half that next time.
And where did you get the interest to go from there then to go try your skills in Japan?
Well, Japan came after Mexico. Japan has always been the finish line, and Mexico to a certain extent, because, I was probably a little bit more nerdy than most kids. Whereas, while everyone was watching The Rock and Goldberg, I was watching Negro Casas and Ultimo Dragon and the Great Muta. I was a tape nerd. I had the DVDs. I was just obsessed with that stuff.
Yeah.
So, even when I was at WWE, that was always kind of like, I wish I could go to Japan. I wish I could go to Mexico. But when I was in England, there would be a lot of wrestlers coming through the doors just for little tours here, a week of shows, 2 weeks of shows. And I actually met Angelico from AEW. He became a really good friend of mine very quickly. And he was living in Mexico at the time. And we would just talk about lucha. And it was like, dude, how do you know all this stuff about Mexican wrestling? I'm like, I'm a nerd. I watch this. I've seen all of it. And he's like, yeah, I think you like Mexico. So he became a really good friend and was always inviting me just a bunch of times, saying, dude, come to Mexico, come to Mexico. After that, we had a wrestler named Supernova, who's Bengala in AAA. He was over there, same thing. You need to get to Mexico. And then the last one was a guy named Black Fire, also from Mexico, said, Sam, just come to Mexico. So I talked to Angelico. He helped me get some meetings with some important people. And when I got down there, everything moved so quickly that I didn't even have a chance. I was the all-star champion in England. I was the champion for Brian Dixon. And I couldn't go back to lose the belt. There was so much happening so fast, and there was no opportunity for me to get back there. So he ended up just, doing a tournament for it and vacating the strap. But the second I got there, everything was clicking and everything just worked out so well. And I learned Spanish in the process.
How do you learn Spanish in the process?
Tinder.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I did pretty well down there on Tinder and all these apps and whatnot. So Google Translate, with enough consistency, you end up picking up things. You pick up a little bit here, a little bit there, and next thing you know, I'm speaking conversational Spanish. And another thing, I would do a lot of press. As soon as I got with CMLL, they really kind of, gave me the ball to run with and started taking me to TV shows and interviews and whatnot. And I would just try to pick it up as fast as I can. And, it's sink or swim. I think your brain processes something a little bit differently when you have no choice. And the fact that I was living there with no end in sight and, with opportunity at my fingertips, I think that probably helped me learn a little bit easier. But now looking back, I couldn't imagine living a life without Spanish.
Did you also speak Japanese?
No. That's a complete different ball game. I know a few words just to get by and just to be polite, but it's too complicated for me at this point. And the Japanese, I've been there 4 times for different amounts of time. So the longest I ever stayed there was 5 weeks, and I don't think that's enough time to learn really what they got. I think
Did you ever have a moment in Mexico where they were speaking Spanish about you and you understood they're talking about me?
Not quite, because at least in CMLL, they'd all talk about you in front of your face. They joke with you. CMLL was a bit of a brotherhood where everybody's kind of on the same page. Everybody was busting my balls, calling me gringo, come here, gringo. I never saw anything negative of that capacity. I have since had that happen, whether I'm at a restaurant or if I'm, in another city where you hear it happening, and then all you have to do is say something in Spanish and they're kind of caught off guard. So not in Mexico though.
What would you say is the scariest situation that you were in Mexico?
Well, there's 2 of them. One, I'll just leave it at this, my ex-girlfriend. And 2 was
that's it. No, you're really going to leave it just that.
Well, I could literally write a book about that, and it could probably be a Hallmark movie because it was pretty dramatic. It was just really, really messed up. She had some brothers.
Hallmark movies have happy endings, though.
No, Lifetime movie. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's what I meant. But yeah, her brothers were some unsavory people, and there was a lot of threats involved, and a lot of just. It was bad. I ended up leaving Mexico because of that. But the other situation that was wild was leaving the arena, and an Escalade started tailing me, walking to my car. And I knew it. I just knew this was going on. So my ex-girlfriend at the time, this one went in to get the promoter, and he comes out and tells us, "You guys got to get out of here now." He ended up calming this person down, because apparently whenever I was wrestling on the inside, this guy was getting text messages from other unsavory people about how I need to be dealt with, if you will.
Wow.
For those that don't know, in Mexico, I was doing a gimmick where I was a Donald Trump sympathizer.
I was just going to get into it. Yeah. Was this all because of the character that you were playing?
Yes. And that's a crucial detail, because Mexico is a great country full of just some of the nicest people we ever meet. But, I was antagonizing for sure. I was pushing the envelope. And yes, this was a character that I pulled, and just, I wasn't really a different character. I was just so brash that I came out of the ring with the American flag with Donald Trump's face on it. And this is right in the beginning when he was, considered the most racist man on the planet, and everybody hated him. I mean, a lot of people still feel that way, but either way, when I was in there doing that, it was 50-50. Some people would just get into it for the show and then come and want pictures and just say, "Thank you for being a great heel." Other people, you get that 1,000-yard stare every once in a while, and you're just like, "Yeah, it's time to go." This particular night, you don't see many black Escalades in Mexico City. They're kind of a big fancy car that stands out, and they're not around there. I come out of the arena and it's parked to my right. And I remember signing autographs slowly to make sure, okay, get this guy out of here. "Oh, thank you. Hey, good night. Thank you. Thank you." I ended up saying to my girlfriend, "Hey, go get the promoter." He ended up talking to him and said, "You get out of town right now. Don't come back. Don't stop for gas. Don't stop for food. Go." So I guess he bought a few minutes of life for me.
Oh my gosh. So this was the time, when Donald Trump was talking about building the wall, and here you are in Mexico, having this gimmick. So where did the idea for this come from? You knew how much heat this was going to get.
Well, the thing is, and this is just being an old wrestling nerd, to me, like heat is heat. Like it's not complicated. It's, some things make people mad. You just go for it. I don't ever want anyone to be truly offended by what it is. I just thought we're at the era, that wrestling is wrestling, and you know what you're getting into. So I used to wear tights. I still wear tights, kind of like Rick Rude used to, with the airbrush art all over the sides. And I was a representative in a tournament where I was the sole American. So I got the Statue of Liberty, I got a dollar bill, I got an American flag. I put Donald Trump on it. That'd be funny. And instantly, my bosses were going nuts. The bookers were going nuts. Everybody, the wrestlers, thought it was hilarious. And it was just like, whoa, what is this? Next thing you knew, this was about a week before he won the presidency. And then when he won, I came out with the flag, because when I lived in England, I was always coming out with an American flag. It was kind of my, my go-to prop, if you will. So it just all fell into place. And out of that, I mean, I had so much international media attention, and it was unbelievable. I mean, it was so cool just having these people, come to my house and film how I eat breakfast and how I walk down the street. Vice did a piece, NBC, CNN, Reuters, GQ. I mean, if you searched YouTube for Sam Adonis right now, there's probably equal parts news media to wrestling. And that's, it was a really amazing experience.
I feel like that's a gimmick that could work all over the world, because Donald Trump is such a polarizing figure. Even, in a few weeks, he's not going to be the president anymore. But even now, why did you stop running with this gimmick?
Honestly, it's because I came back to the United States. It's too sensitive here. Mexico is a little bit more of a I hate to say the word free, but they're more just relaxed. That'd be the best way to put it. They don't, there's not as much of the complaining and the social justice and whatnot. That, people just want to be enjoyed. They come to the shows just to hate the bad guy and cheer for the good guy. So down there, it's kind of tongue in cheek. You know what I mean? It's just like, that's funny. He's a real good bad guy, this guy. Up here, I think a lot of people don't want to have politics rubbed in their face when they're paying money to watch something. And I think, a lot of people want to escape there every day to come see these wrestling shows. And, whether you like him or not, I think those 3 hours at the wrestling show is when you want to be away from that stuff. You're here to watch a wrestling show. You don't want to be reminded of this president that you do or do not like. So I just had to get away from it. I do it occasionally on some lucha shows. If I'm booked in a lucha capacity where it's a mostly Mexican fan base, I bring it out because that's how they know me. But, most of the time, I don't really like to associate with that anymore, just because I don't want to make anyone mad. It's too risky now.
Speaking of escaping, you got out of Mexico. You mentioned it briefly because of this crazy situation you had with your ex. You just got booked on an American show and you were like, oh, honey, I'll see you later.
Yes, that's exactly what I did. And to this day, I'm still missing some of the most valuable wrestling toys I ever had because they're still in Mexico.
Like, you just picked up your life and you left your stuff there.
Yeah, I had a promoter. I was booked in Los Angeles on a Saturday, and this was a big company that had some money to play with. So I said, hey, is it possible you could fly me to Pittsburgh after my show? I'll make my own way back to Mexico. And they said, no problem. And then I even told my ex at the time, I said, I'm going to see my family after this. I'll be back in a few weeks. And, and I literally just ditched. And I really, looking back, I don't know what kind of choice I would have had, because it was the most toxic of toxic relationships.
Man.
It was bad. There was literally, she threatened my life multiple times. There was one time she told me that the airport knew that I assaulted her, and when I land in Monterrey, I'll be going to jail where I'll be killed. And, these things could be completely made up. She could just know how to get in my head, but I'm also smart enough not to take these chances.
Yeah.
So I just, there was probably a good 8 to 10 months where I did not go back to Mexico City because I was too afraid.
But you've been back since.
Oh, yes. Now everything's okay. I was actually booked on a show this past April, right as the pandemic was in full swing. I was supposed to go back for my first match in about 6 months. So I really can't wait to get back there. I miss the people. I miss the food. I absolutely love everything about Mexico. So I want to get back.
At what point in your escape plan do you think she realized that you weren't coming back?
I tell you what, I was so scared of the situation that I didn't even tell her I wasn't coming back. It wasn't like I'm on the
No, but
plane.
she must have been texting you like, oh, like, when are you coming home? When are you coming home?
I was like playing it off, like, okay, well, yeah, when can you get up here? Yeah, I'll buy you a flight and this and that. Because she wanted me to marry her while I was in Mexico so she could have instant visa status or temporary visa status or something. She said, oh, well, let's just get married now. So whenever you go home, I can come see you easier. Just all kinds of crazy stuff. But I think I probably gave it 5 or 6 days into my trip to Pittsburgh, where I was supposed to be there, is when I maybe picked a fight. And then from the fight, it snowballed. And like, I mean, I was at my house, like just freaking out. I'm 2,000 miles away. What's she going to do? Somehow she had me in a terrible place and, just manipulative. And it was pretty naughty, man. Pretty wild.
You're in a much better spot now.
Well, honestly, I mean, this girl has reached out multiple times, and like I have no ill will now that we've both moved on. But at the same time, I'm in no rush to see her ever again.
My goodness.
Like I said, it would be an awesome Lifetime movie if I died in the end.
No, well, like you could die in the movie, maybe, but not the real version of the story.
Right.
Yeah, nobody wants
that. It's kind of like those TV novellas. There's Spanish soap operas. They're intense. They're dramatic. There's fighting. There's screaming. There was actually a day where she was driving her car and we were arguing. She put the brakes on the highway. Well, pulled off of the highway where the tackies are coming. Parked the car, gets out, waves a cab, gets in the taxi. I get in the car and start tailing her around Mexico City just because I knew I didn't have another choice. If I went home, she's coming back to, freak out and start another fight. So it was absolutely nuts. It made me realize life is 5. You have your ups, you have your downs. Yes, I was in a top spot in CMLL in Mexico, but my personal life was bringing that right back down to 5.
I like that. That's really interesting. When we look at everywhere that you've wrestled all over the world, who do you think's been the most influential person in your wrestling career?
Ultimo Dragon. Ultimo Dragon has been somebody that's just, and it's not even necessarily just the wrestling portion. As a performer, he's one of the all-time greats. But as just a person, he is just somebody. You see him at the airport, and he's just decked out in Gucci. He has style like nobody you'll ever see. He likes his Cuban cigars. He likes his aged wine. This guy is a classy human being, and he just does everything first class. He's so full of respect, and he's the kind of guy that you don't even want to swear around the guy because you have so much respect for him. He's just one of a kind. He's been wrestling for 30 years. He's also, been promoting for 20 years in big arenas all over the world. This guy has his fingers in so many things, and just, the way his life and his business model has been structured. He's my absolute hero. I wish I could be like that guy.
You've made such a name for yourself pretty much everywhere else but here. And now it's time, with 13 years experience, to let people know what Sam Adonis is all about.
Well, I think it's been a bit of a catch-22 because things have changed a lot in the 13 years that I've wrestled. When I was, I hate saying back in my day, but, anybody will tell you 13 years, there's been a drastic change in professional wrestling.
Sure.
When I first broke in, it was almost kind of play by the rules, work hard, just do things right, respect your elders, and it pays off. Now it's kind of, and it's not just wrestling, it's the world in general. It's almost by any means necessary, get famous. And that's kind of how wrestling is now. My style has always been, learn it right, work the style, work for my boss, do it right. Now there's guys, and I'm not trying to take anything away from these guys because they're unbelievably talented, but now it's almost easier to just put your Instagram clips up and your, small little local promotion. And if you do enough cool things on your Instagram, you get noticed, you blow up, and you get those opportunities. I've almost been, blinded by my own hard work, if that makes sense, to realize that I guess I can't see the forest through the trees. I've been putting so much effort into traveling and learning the craft right that now here in the United States, I don't think I really have much name value, as far as a lot of these independents go. And it's nice because it's finally started to change. But, I've done so much elsewhere, but they were places that aren't really looked at by the American fan base. Not many fans watch CMLL or All Japan.
Well, does this mean that, if the opportunity was there, that you'd go back to England and work there for another bunch of months, maybe back to Japan, do the same thing?
It's a lot different now just because of this, my, stage in life. Now I have different priorities. I have different things. I'm an independent. I'm true independent. I've always been an independent since I was released from WWE. I didn't have contracts in England, Mexico, or Japan. I was, on handshake agreements. I'm always down to work anywhere. I would love to work, the big companies here in the United States. I'd love to work more in Mexico, more in Japan, more in England, everywhere I can. I want to be. But the circumstances are different now because, I have different bills and priorities than I did back at that point. I have a dog now. I have a girlfriend now, that I live with. It's not as easy as it was.
Not trying to kill you.
Yeah. It's not as easy as it was when I was 21, when I was actually trying to escape my girlfriend.
I'm again, very glad that you weren't killed in Mexico. What a crazy story that is. Jeez.
Yeah, one of these days I need a full episode. If we ever do a follow-up, let's do the whole story and come.
Oh my goodness. I think people would love that.
That would probably be more entertaining than the actual wrestling episodes. So, I mean, there was some crazy stories, and to the point where it's almost unbelievable.
So what goals do you have as we look forward to the rest of this year? I mean, it's January right now as we record this. What are your 2021 goals?
I just want everything to kind of, pick back up and get back to a reasonable pace. Like you said, I don't think we're getting back to normal anytime soon. I would like us to, as a society, as a planet, be able to, overcome this pandemic and get back to where we need to be responsible, keep each other safe. That would be nice. But let's get to a point where wrestling can pick back up. And I'm one of these guys that wrestling's in my blood. I'm never gonna give up. Give up isn't a thing. I could be 70 years old working at a gas station and I probably would still be, taking tickets at the gymnasium down the street. It's what I do. So, right now I have no problem working at Amazon to pay bills, but I want to stay busy. I want to stay consistent. I would love to get some of these opportunities, whether it be WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, Impact, any of these, because I know I have a lot to offer. And, I can't even say that's an immediate goal. It's just, to me, it's like I said to you, I always knew I'd be a wrestler. I know that, there's something else out there for me. It's not about how, it's about when. Right. And I'm not the kind of person to give up, so my opportunity has not been now. It hasn't been the last, 3 or 4 years, but I look at my track record of what I have accomplished and it's been pretty good things pretty consistently. So I'm confident that the best is yet to come. But it's just, I think I'm more concerned about everybody getting back on the same page, aside from wrestling, just get back to normal life and take care of one another.
I mean, you're working some independent dates. You're working January 14th in Arlington. There is still some independent wrestling that's coming together.
Well, that's it. I'm doing January 14th in Arlington, Texas, Brawl at the Brew. It's going to be at a brewery, which is, I think it's like downtown Arlington. And
that's awesome.
It'll be kind of cool. It's called Pele Pro. They're a new upstart, which is nice. But
but that's where I met you. It was the same promoter. I met you in Texas. That was just outside of Dallas. But man, that was
August.
August,
yeah. Well, the thing is, they do these. I guess Texas has a little bit, more relaxed laws than some of the other states, which is why they're able to happen. So, I think that's why this is happening. It might be a little bit less mandated by the state, for instance. However, the actual promoters are still, stepping up and taking on the obligation of keeping the fans safe. They will be social distancing. Masks are required. There'll be hand sanitizing stations. So it's a completely different game. But, it's all I've ever known and loved. I'm so blessed and lucky every time I get to lace up my boots because, I'm having so much fun being able to perform for everybody, and it's funny because, I think a good heel is so selfless, and I have sacrificed thousands of Twitter followers and thousands of dollars in merchandise sales because I want to be a heel. I want to be the guy that you hate. I don't want you to like me. I don't want you to say, he's a good wrestler. I want you to hate me. So when I get beat up, you go home so happy, so happy. You're not happy that the baby face won. you're happy that I lost. That's what I've always wanted to do, and that's what I'm able to do at these places now. So, just being given that opportunity, even on a limited basis right now, it's great. I'm so excited for Texas. There's a couple other things, down the line coming up, but, I just think the heels kind of, I don't know. I just feel there's more to it than people give it credit for, because if you understand how deep it was, you do it for the fans. You leave hating me, even though I love you, if that makes sense.
Have you always been drawn to heels?
No. Honestly,
growing up, who were your guys?
Hulk Hogan. I always want to be Hulk Hogan. I want to be Hulk Hogan to this day, but I had my favorites, Muta and Kabashi, Onita. I loved Sabu, the Sandman. I've always wanted to be a baby face, but I always think being a baby face, you have to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, the fans don't believe in you.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of baby faces are the biggest egomaniacs on the planet, because you have to be a little bit self-centered to do so. I've always been kind of too self-conscious to believe myself as a baby face, so I know that I can give you a better show by getting my butt kicked and crying, than I can pretending like I'm, He-Man. So it's all relative as well. You develop over time. Here in Pittsburgh, I can be a baby face because I am comfortable, because they're my friends and family. It's just, I don't know. I don't know where the voyage will take me, but I know I'm in for the long haul. And I still, like I said, I'm 6'4", 240 pounds. And, I have a decent amount of experience. And, I think I can make a lot of good things happen when the time comes. But right now it's a promoter's game. And, I just have to wait in line and keep delivering those smiles for Amazon.
That's it. But like you said, it's, you've got all the tools. It's just a matter of getting that opportunity. And fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, nobody's getting opportunities really right now.
Exactly. And I mean, it's either way. If I had to retire tomorrow, I've had the best life you can imagine. I mean, the stories I have from, countries and people all over the world would literally, blow your mind. So there's always that. And I'm always grateful for that. But now, like I said, my priorities have changed. I'm to the point, I'm 31 years old. I'd like to have children. I have a good family here that I want to take care of. I want to be able to provide for. So it's not necessarily now about going out and finding the good story as much. It's about, fulfilling other dreams.
Well, you said the word there that I always end every interview with. I always talk about how being grateful is just something that can completely change your life. And, I have it behind me here. If you're grateful, then you'll live a great life. So I want to know, Sam, what are 3 things in your life that you're grateful for right now?
I have 3 specifically, but I'll put them all together as family. I have the best family structure, and I'll even include the people in my life. That's one of the most, the most grateful things that I have. It's just, we've had a great Christmas. We've had a great year. My girlfriend's my best friend. We have a dog. We spend every night together having a blast. We have our neighbors that we get to see. My family's still here in Pittsburgh. I'm so incredibly blessed to be as close to my family as I am. The other thing would be my I don't even know how to be thankful for it. How do you say you're thankful for what you've already been able to accomplish? There's just so many dreams that have come true that, 7-year-old Sam would never imagine. We were in Mexico City, and my parents actually came to one of the shows down there, and I was in the main event against Ultimo Dragon, and I tore his mask off in Arena, Mexico, in front of about 10,000 people. And I had done this a few times already. So this, talk about taking it for granted. It meant nothing. It's just what we do. It's just what I do. I've done it before. I'll do it again. So after the show's over, I come in the back and I say, "So Dad, what do you think?" He goes, "You took Ultimo Dragon's mask off." And I'm like, "What? Samuel, you took Ultimo Dragon's mask off?" And I'm like, "Holy cow, I did." 7-year-old Sam would have lost his mind if you'd have told him that. So, I'm definitely grateful for so many of the experience I've had, and I guess the last and final, and these are in no particular order, but it would just be my health. I feel great. I think I've always, progressed over the years, starting as a chubby kid that was not very athletic to, being able to do some of the fancy things I can do today.
Being an Adonis.
Yeah, exactly. You saw me beat Brian Cage with that 450. So,
That's right.
being healthy and being able is the final thing I'm grateful for. I should touch wood right now because we are in the middle of a pandemic, and the whole situation has been horrible for everyone. And I'm sorry to anybody that this has been difficult on, but I feel so blessed. And like I said to you, a couple hours ago, 3 or 4 hours ago, whenever we started this thing, but I think this point in my life, 5 years from now, I will look back at this and really be grateful for this period because it was so humbling. It really put everything into perspective, friends, family, everything. And like, there's just so much good that can come from it. I'm just ready for us all to be able to look at this in the past tense.
That's it. You nailed it. It's all about perspective. It's all about being able to look at things through that lens. And that's exactly what you're doing right now.
I mean, it's the price you have to pay. Again, this could all just be something that, in the future, this could be a story to tell someone else. Hell yeah, when I was 31, I was driving for Amazon. Nah, no way, really. It's all part of the journey. I heard a good quote the other day. I'm probably going to screw it up.
Oh, I love good quotes.
Yeah, let's see. Okay. There's no treasure at the end of the journey. The treasure is the journey. No, the journey is a treasure. Sorry about that. I told you I'd screw it up. There's no treasure at the end of the journey. The journey is the treasure. And that's pretty accurate because, you don't see it until it's, not there. And it's now, being removed from wrestling to say, holy cow, I've had a great life. I'm so lucky to have these people around me. And, it's just keep on plugging, man.
That's exactly where we're going to end things. I love that.
It's been great, man. I have my social media. If you could plug that for anybody.
Of course. Yeah. Where can people find you?
People can get me on Instagram and Twitter on @RealSamAdonis. Twitter is all about old wrestling and just the matches I'm watching. I pay attention to the old stuff. Like, it's my obsession right now. So if you ever want some old wrestling footage to watch, check out my Twitter. Instagram's got some cool pictures of me, the family, personal and wrestling related. And I just appreciate everybody. If you can come out to Texas next week and see us on the 14th at Pele Pro in Arlington, that would be great. Shoot me a message on Instagram or Twitter. I'll do my best to get back to you, but I just appreciate everyone out there listening. And all I can do is hope everybody there stays safe.
We appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Chris. I'll see you in a few weeks.